Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them.
Hi, I'm Chris Staniford. I'm the most interesting person you've never heard of because I've got the best timing ever in a career.
Chris Staniford, welcome
Thanks for
to
having
the
me.
most interesting person you've never heard of podcast.
I'm not sure I qualify, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, you might not. People have heard of you.
No, that's not what I meant.
Well, for those who don't know, you are the athletic director of Gonzaga University.
I am currently.
Always checking every day.
Yeah, you never know.
You wake up every day and see, am I still the guy?
Yeah.
That's an amazing accomplishment. Because when I first met you, you were, I don't know, man. It was. I remember I remember a meeting we had in. You won't remember any of this stuff, but a meeting we had in the old kennel, upstairs. Your offices were upstairs in the Kennedy Pavilion area.
Martin Center by then.
Martin Center by then, and we were looking at plans for the new kennel.
Yep.
And you kind of asked my brother and I to come over and just go, where do you camera guys put cameras? You know, and what do you think of this? And we were just, you probably don't remember that meeting, but
I don't remember the meeting, but I do remember both you and your brother quite well.
Yeah.
Actually, I actually remember you from high school.
You really?
I do, yeah.
What year were you?
87.
So you're 87 prep.
Yep.
So where did you grow up? Here?
I grew up in Spokane. Yeah.
So the question would be I know what high school, but what grade school if you went to prep?
St. Pascal's.
Oh, so you're a Pascal's Valley guy.
Out in the valley, yep.
Oh, man. I remember Pascal's. We played them at football. Yeah, it was St. John's and Pascal's together.
We had to join up because we were so
red
small.
uniforms.
Yep.
Yeah, and this one dude had like a stupid neck roll. I don't remember.
I love the fact you can remember the
Dude,
color.
I remember that. I remember that guy. Oh yeah, grade school football.
Nothing
Huge
better
in this
than
town,
grade school.
right?
So that was when you got to introduce to Gonzaga Prep. You got to go up there on Saturday mornings.
That's right. Oh wow, I didn't even know you went to prep. I didn't even know that you were there in '87. Okay.
Things you don't know. See, there
Things
you go.
I don't know that come back. So you knew me when I was ASB president.
That's
back
right.
then.
You were the
In
man.
Gumby.
You were the big man on campus.
Wow. See, somebody remembers that. Well, your class is most notable recently because at the last reunion, prep reunion. I don't know if you probably didn't go, but that reunion event they have, I had the after party for my class 85 here. And we had a DJ in there, food. It was a party, and 87 crashed it.
Well, they are a crafty group.
They were an excitable group, and it was great. They made it actually fun.
That's good.
We needed them. We needed the youngsters to come in here and do that.
Way to represent.
So that meeting that we had there, I just remember that Steve Hertz was in there. Hertzy was in that, and we were just talking about, and I just remember going, 6,000 seats, that's not enough. Like, you guys, you got to put in 8. And I know they were you only have as much money as you have, right? They're like, I don't know, we could do 8, you know? And I just remember looking at Hertz, and every time I see him, I say this to him. I'm like, you are going to rue the day you don't put 2,000 more seats in here. Like, just trust me, man. Every time you see me, you're gonna go, we should have put in 2 more thousand. I mean, what, you know? And every time you see him, he goes, I know, we should have.
I remember those days so much differently because it was
I bet you do.
How are we gonna sell 6,000 seats?
Well, that was the thing. You guys were like, what if we have a down year? What if it doesn't go well? What if it's? I'm like, are you kidding me? You guys are the game in town. This is not an NBA team. It's not a city.
I mean, we've been in
this is the game. You're not gonna not get. You're not gonna have that problem. It was easy for me to say, but you guys are in that actual chair. You know,
you had some pretty good vision then because it was like year 2 or year 3 of the run back then.
Yeah,
so
but that was mania.
It was unbelievable.
It was mania.
It was truly unbelievable, and honestly, we built that building as efficiently and as big as we could with the budget that we could muster, and frankly, it was a massive undertaking for the university to build that building in the first place. Great benefaction. A lot of people that really put their heart and soul into it. It was, and it's been an amazing asset in this whole run for the program.
It's one of the best places, the best home courts in college basketball. Period. Yeah. Top 5, gotta be. I mean, usually ranked among there all the time whenever I see it.
Yeah, and our students make it special. Our students just do an unbelievable job of bringing energy.
No question. So let me ask you this hypothetically: if you had 2,000 more seats in there, what kind of revenue would that mean? What would it do for you? Or would it?
It's
because
really
I know the
hard.
waiting list is a long one. Having been a season ticket holder for almost 25 years now, it's a tough ticket.
Well, supply and demand's real. I think that's part of the equation. And there were several years there at the beginning that deep waiting list probably drove up value of seats. And so it's really hard to go back and assess what would, if you had 2,000 seats more then, you might have a diminished value in terms of where we're at today. Now, obviously what we did back in January with the Pepperdine game, back in January, it is January still, it feels like a month ago.
When we record this.
Yeah. So it was, to put 12,000 people in the Spokane Arena to play Pepperdine was a huge testament to our community.
That must have been an interesting test for you guys, kind of. I mean, Kentucky's one thing last year. That Kentucky game, I don't even remember going into that arena, that Kentucky game, was it last year? And going, and people thinking, I don't know if it's going to be like, are they going to fill this place? And or not would they fill this place, but would it be a home court advantage the way the Kennel is?
Yep.
Dude, it was
rocking. Yeah.
I mean, every bit as good, maybe even more. I don't know what you thought, but
I thought it was electric. It was an unbelievable environment.
Crazy.
And that's been the rap on the Spokane Arena for us through all these years.
Of course.
It's quiet. It gets dead.
Right.
And the big difference was we were able to bring a bunch of students into that game.
Yeah.
And that brought a lot of energy. But the Pepperdine game this year was spectacular.
Awesome.
We were doing it for a good cause, working with the Community Cancer Fund. But my God, it was full. And it was loud. It was our players really played well. Mark was super thrilled after that game.
Can you imagine another game like that every year now or more?
I think we have to look really long and hard at it for sure.
Certainly, it probably opens up the possibility for another school in the non-conference to say, "I'll play you there. I don't have to play you in the Kennel."
I'll be honest with you. I think in my mindset, it kind of flipped it from should we do it for our benefit. It kind of, for me, it's not like we kind of owe it to the community. They came out and supported
100%.
And it's something that we really have to look long and hard at, and not just should we, but can we get it done? Because obviously it's a very busy venue with a lot of different stakeholders. But I think that it's going to be a priority for us to try and get a game down there every year.
I think it would be really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not very far. It was cool too. One of the things that was cool for me was to see Anton play his last game on that court where really he started. I mean, it's amazing to see a kid play 4 years on that at prep, and then continue. I mean, a lot of them were at home, at prep's gym, but a lot of them were there. I mean, he's played on that floor for a long time, and as I was watching that game, I'm like, I'm not surprised he's doing. I mean, he had a great night, right?
I'll tell you, Anton he's such a good dude, and he is grown so much as a basketball player, but also as a person. He's just kind of grown in front of all of us. Yeah. I think Spokane kind of feels like he's their guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. We've done 2 commercials with him. And at prep, he was my daughter's community service partner. So they have groups of 3 and she's got this little car and she drove him around and he could barely fit in it, so they've been good friends, since high school. And the 2 times we filmed with him, we filmed with a lot of Zags over the years. This ball right here is signed by all the players that we've filmed over the years, and many more that we filmed that haven't signed it. Like Batista needs to sign that. Sakura needs to sign that. I gotta get on it. But he, like all of them, have just been always awesome to work with. I mean, the kids, the people you have, men's and women's. They're just remarkable.
Our coaches deserve so much credit for the people they bring into our community. It's an unbelievable testament to their vision, their ability to understand culture, men's and women's, and not just basketball.
Right.
But then also for the broader community to support them. I mean, I think you just listed a couple guys that, well, they aren't from here, but where do they live? This is where they come back. This becomes home. We have 52 living basketball alums in Spokane.
Are you
on
kidding?
the men's basketball team.
No way.
So
just from the men's team.
Just from the men's team. They are this is a tough place for them not to come back to. And it's not just because of the experience we've created at Gonzaga, but it's what the Spokane community has done to make them feel welcome and be part of it and feel special.
Why is it? What do you think that is? Why do they think they stay? I mean, what has it been that?
I could only speculate because I think it's probably a lot of different things, but I think it's because the people here are grateful and friendly and welcoming, and they recognize the role that maybe that moment in their life that they felt special. And I think you would feel embraced by that and want to be part of it. I also think that this is just a great community.
Yeah.
And once you come here and you're exposed to it, you get to really see the value of this is, especially when they start thinking about raising a family, pretty darn good place to raise a family.
I remember the only time we filmed one of this act, we were like, okay, we got some warning, This was when he was playing, and he was probably, at the height of the most popular college basketball player, really, but Adam Morrison, when he was his last year, he was a rock star. And we had a commercial. He was in a Gonzaga ad that we did, and it was like, well, I don't know, this guy's a little surly now. He might be a challenge. He's going to be a handful for you guys. And I found nothing like that. He was just great. He was super smart. He was funny. Made good comments. I mean, I love working with athletes anyway, directing them because they listen. They're coachable.
Yeah.
And he was phenomenal. I don't know where that stigma came from, but I just, he said stuff, I guess, but Adam was fun.
His stigma is because he's a competitor. He gets really competitive. But you said a couple things that I think are the most important part of who Adam is. He's a really intelligent, thoughtful person who is incredibly competitive, and I don't think he enjoys the limelight very much. But I've never seen him shy away from a responsibility, whether that be one to his family, to his team, whatever that happens to be. I got a lot of respect for Adam Morrison.
Yeah. And, he endured a lot. I mean, he went through the ringer. Yeah. The expectations were so high to get hurt, but nobody remembers the injuries. They just remember he didn't make it. He just didn't,
Yeah, and I guess I think it all depends on your definition of making it. I think that the expectations of being
guy's got 2 rings.
Yeah, it's
I don't have 2 rings.
His career's a lot better than a lot of other guys.
No kidding.
There's times I'd like to fail like that.
Right? Yeah. And that's the thing about that program too. Is I don't know who told me this. Somebody mentioned it. It wasn't like I didn't see it on the air. It was somebody that I'd talked to about early on, because when early on I got to know Billy Greer, Tommy, and Craig Fortier, because they were the grad assistants
doing
the highlight reels that we would create to get players, right? And it really worked. I remember Tommy walking in one day and goes, "We got Matt Bolden, man," and he said, "I picked you guys because your video was better than UCLA's," and I was like, "What? Are you kidding?" I mean, and I mean, Tommy still. I mean, that guy's remarkable. I mean, if you or I text him right now, he would probably respond.
He might respond to you. He might respond to you more quickly.
Hey, well, you had to do your job,
Oh, Tommy's great. Tommy's
I'm so proud.
friend.
I'm so happy for him, right? Yeah. I mean, just everything that guy's endured. What's your favorite Tommy Lloyd story?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I have a good Tommy Lloyd story because they're all so
inappropriate.
And none of them should be told on any sort of media that can be reached.
I got a couple myself. Yeah, you're probably right there.
I would say the one thing about Tommy is he's authentic. He's just always who he is, and he's a guy that is fiercely competitive. He's also very loyal. There's a lot of things about Tommy that you really have to admire, And I think that the success that he's had initially at Arizona is just, it's crazy. Now, I also think that it sets an expectation that's also crazier.
Oh, man.
So,
I know.
But, to see Chanel and they've got a wonderful family. They're
great
to
family.
See them having the success that he's having, it's been really gratifying.
Yeah, I mean, and I mentioned those guys because that was my early exposure to the basketball program was these guys. Billy, when he was a grad assistant. So Mark is the first assistant to Fitz. This is before Dan got the job. Dan Monson, he gets the job, and Billy's, that first run, that Elite Eight run against UConn, that game, I mean, it says a lot about, I think, something about how those guys are, and that leads me to the point I was trying to make before, which is somebody told me that when these guys recruit, you have an opportunity when you recruit to visit a player a certain amount of times, 3 or 4 times, something like that. And maybe it's all changed now with NIL. I don't know. The whole world maybe has changed, but you can, as a coaching staff, go see a player or visit them or can somehow 4 times, and they always saw all that player all 4 times. They took advantage of every one of those 4 opportunities to meet somebody because the character of who they were and the person of who they were, this is what I took from it, mattered so much that you really needed to see somebody 4 times to kind of meet them and get there. And a lot of coaching staffs just didn't. They go 1 time, 2 times, we'll take him. But they were so thorough in that. Is that your perspective? Has that changed? Am I getting that right? That kind of,
I think so. I mean, I guess it's
digging.
There's a long continuum, right? But I think the character, obviously the people we are recruiting are great players, but the ones we offer are usually great people,
right?
And in a lot of cases with great people around them too.
Families,
a lot of great families. A lot of people who have had great mentors and have a great support system, because that, especially in today's day and age with NIL and all the pressures that are going on, I wouldn't wish this experience on my kids. I mean, there's days that it's like that's a lot to ask of an 18 to 22-year-old. They are navigating, the idea that we're trying to help them by opening all these doors. It's like, man, this life is hard enough.
Is it been harder, you think? Has it made it worse? Or has it made it harder? Depends on the player.
It's a loaded question because who am I to answer the question, right? I'm not living in their shoes. But again, as a parent, and I see the stresses I have 3 kids that are, my youngest is now in college. I've got 2 that are out, and watching them navigate those 4 years and without being an athlete, of how much stress and anxiety and work there is to it.
It's a tough world right now.
And they compared to a student athlete's life, they have a cakewalk.
Yeah.
And yet it's still a lot for them.
Right.
And so to think when you layer on the expectations of their own competitive instincts and desires, but then the external expectations of, hey, you're going to get drafted, you're going to do this. And now NIL, and by the way, you're going to make a bunch of money while you do it, and we're going to market you, and you need to have active social media and these different things.
And you have to have time and all the. Yeah, I don't know how they're doing it.
Yeah, they have my deepest admiration for the way they manage their lives, and ultimately, and at the same time, they're being successful academically. I just listed all those things, and I never mentioned the academic rigor that Gonzaga expects. It's unbelievable.
Really they're academically challenging.
Yeah, they're doing an amazing job.
And yet, as fans, we don't even think about that stuff. We just expect, that these guys who are, you forget their kids. They still are.
So easy to forget their kids.
It's so easy to forget their kids. Because on the court, they're sometimes not. I mean, they're just, especially the quality of the player that Gonzaga gets, especially. I mean, these guys are phenomenal athletes, and yet we just expect them to show up. And when you have a bit of a down year, like we're experiencing this year, it just gets so unrealistic. So how spoiled are we?
That's easy to answer, like off the charts. I mean, the idea that we're already, this is a down year.
I don't know if it will be.
Well, and I was going to say,
I'm like, this is a great defensive team, man. These guys get everything in front of them. They could still be great. I mean, you're not ranked for the first time in 100,000
Well,
years.
And the analytics that we utilize in basketball that really are prescriptive and reflective of just how good are you relative to competition, that are not just how favorable are the votes for you, but how good are you.
Right, the ranking stuff.
Ken Palm's my favorite.
Ken Palm, yeah.
Well, we were 18 in it before we played Pacific. We're 22 today. Is that a down year? I don't think so. Well, but at the same time, you had a few chances in the non-conference to go out and and a couple balls bounce the other direction. A couple of those outcomes are different.
Free throw goes down.
And so we've, in our minds, I look at it as, we're spoiled because we're not being validated in every moment. But I'm waiting until the end of the year to decide.
Well, that's what I think. I mean, you look at these, bracketology stuff, and you're on the outside looking at, last four in. I mean, just nobody sees that, Yeah. So it's just it is rare to be in this spot actually, but it's so rare to even get here ever.
And to think that how regularly we've been here. We've been here, this last 25 years has been just an unbelievable period of sustained success, with a lot of moments that have could have gone either way, that have led to more great moments, and just we should just really relish and be excited about every time that this team wins a championship, that we have an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. And yet, I mean, you want to talk about object kind of spoiledness, is that 2 years ago it's like, oh my God, we lost in the Sweet 16, and last year it's like the Elite Eight. It's like, oh, we didn't go to the Final Four, and it's like, you remember '99?
Oh man,
the Elite Eight was like going to Mars.
It was insane. In fact, I remember in '99 they're about to play UConn, who eventually wins the national championship, by the way, and they lose by like 1 or 2 points. I mean, very close game, right? 4, under 5.
I think it was a 3-point game.
3-point game, something like that. I mean, it was really close. They were right there, and Billy Greer calls me, like the day before the game, or something, and I'm like, why is he calling me? Like, they play tomorrow to go to the Final Four. I'm like, what do you want? Yeah, what do you want? He goes, I don't know. I call you every time this year. This is the day I call you. Like, Billy is a prepared dude. Okay. Yeah. And I'm just like, you're going to play tomorrow? Call me after you win the national championship. Like, dude, don't even, but I think he just needed to stay on task, and it's the thing I did. And I don't know, just talk to somebody that's not they were out of their minds. Like, they were out of their minds. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. That was it's interesting. It's
because you were there then, right?
Well, I was, and so I was just gonna mention. So in my career, which I started working in the department in 1990. Wow! So it's been a long time.
1990.
And so we went to the first trip to the NCAA tournament was in 95. And I was there. It was
like John Riley.
John
right?
Riley just caught on fire. I don't remember how many threes he hit in that West Coast Conference tournament, but it was unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And he's really the guy that we should thank.
He's
one of those unsung heroes, right?
He's got maybe one of the more special 3 days that you can.
God. Wasn't he from Australia or something?
Yeah,
and that was the first taste
down there coaching.
That was the first taste of us going, wait a minute, we might be good here.
Well, it's funny. We had a alumni weekend a couple weeks ago, and we brought back the 94 team and the 99 team, the 30th and the 25th anniversary of those two teams. And it allowed me to really reminisce and reconnect with some of those guys. Now, a lot of those 94 guys I essentially went to school with. And,
you were about the same age as those guys, man.
And a lot of them are still in town, so it's cool. Great to see them. And they're just, they're unbelievable people in our community. Yeah. Great, just great human beings. And then the 99 guys, to bring them all back, it was so fun. It was a lot of reminiscing, a lot of remembering, a lot of misremembering maybe in a few cases. But for me, the funny thing about 99 is I have been to every NCAA tournament game Gonzaga's ever played in except for 2. My son was born, my oldest, my first child, our son was born. Literally, we were watching the Florida game. I almost went to the game. I went to Seattle, and I almost went to Phoenix. And my wife actually was encouraging me to go, and I know she'll probably correct me on that. But she wasn't due for like 10 days. And that's my first kid. I don't know any different.
Yeah.
And finally, for whatever reason, somebody smarter than me, I think Mike Roth, said, "No, you need to stay." And sure enough, we're literally watching in our basement the Florida game, and she goes into labor.
Wow!
And so she delivered our son that morning, and then we watched the UConn game in the hospital.
No way!
And so those 2 games I missed, but I made the right decision. There's a good reason to miss those 2 games.
And how old's your oldest now?
Oh gosh, 25.
Yeah, right. So
24, I guess.
I have a 23-year-old. and a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old, right? My stepkids are 21 and 19. Emma is a senior at UW right now. She's went to school at Anton. She's not been they have not been alive when Gonzaga was not in the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
They don't know. I mean, these are grown adults who have never experienced Gonzaga not in March Madness. That's just nuts.
It is my house. My that's my life. My kids have been spoiled over the years. They've been able to attend. Oh,
they've had
games.
Some cool.
They've had some wonderful experiences, but they plan March in a way that has certainty to it. There's no question. It's never even occurred to them,
that this isn't possible.
Yeah,
I know. And that is unrealistic.
And it's also beautiful.
It is.
There's a certain beauty to that confidence and that belief and that expectation.
Right.
It's not all bad.
Right.
It's really, to me, the difference between being spoiled is not so much how do you experience the good, it's how do you experience the loss, right? At the point, the run usually ends, well, it always ends at some point. We want it to end in a championship someday, but it usually, to date, it's come up just short a few times. It's what's your emotion in that moment? And that, to me, defines, that's where you need to recalibrate. In that moment, you need to be able to just be grateful for what you've been able to experience and recognize how rare it is. Rather than just take it, it's okay in my mind, it's okay to expect to be there. But once that end comes, man, just take a step back, take a deep breath, let that other emotion go and just smile.
Yeah, I mean, it's just remarkable. And it is palpable inside that building, inside those buildings now. There used to be one, now there's three. That expectation's there. Like, you feel it in the culture. That's not easy. And you and Mike Roth and Mark and a lot of people collectively have built that. Like, you feel it. And that's what draws those kids to want to play there, don't you think?
Oh, I think
men and women.
Yeah, and not just basketball.
Not just basketball.
It permeates the entire department. And
it's hard to put. You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'll give Mark probably the biggest compliment I can, in that he has had a vision and a belief in himself, his program, and our university since the first day I met him as a grad guy.
Yeah.
He definitely believed, and he's been persistent in that belief through all these years, and I think it's a big driver. Mike Roth was an amazing friend and mentor, but he's my boss for 30 years too, and he was the perfect complement to Mark's belief.
Right.
And obviously great administrative support all the way to the president, the board of trustees. We've had great leadership for long tenured leadership too.
Yeah.
That has allowed for this to be built in the way it has. It's unique. It's a unique story, but it does boil down to a few individuals, their belief, their vision, their drive, and then a whole bunch of really, really talented students, student athletes that have just changed the way people see Spokane and the way they see the university.
Well, I was going to say the change in Spokane is two of us who grew up here. And the feeling of this place, because this is a Spokane podcast, really. I mean, I always just talk to people, but there's always some thread to Spokane, whether they live here or not, have come in and sit down here. But this community is so different since over the last 25 years because of that run. I mean, it just is.
Well, you remember what it was like in high school. No one knew Gonzaga was here. If you weren't Catholic, Gonzaga didn't exist. Right. And if you wanted a sweatshirt that said Gonzaga, you could buy one, but it was in the basement of the COG.
Exactly.
And you needed to know the COG was there. Yeah, exactly. And you needed to find that damn bookstore, because otherwise there was nothing.
Nothing.
We were invisible in our own town.
Yeah, I know. And now it's just become so a part of it. And I've heard it described. I mean, this is one of the great stories in American sports history.
Truly is.
I mean, it just doesn't happen that something like this happens, and to get to the, So take me to your window on that first Final Four, and you guys, Mark especially, doing something very, very unique and really, I thought, so Gonzaga, that kind of opens the door a little, lets you peek into the culture in a way that you just don't see other places. He invited every player back. Mm-hmm. I was there at that Final Four, and I ran into two players that played for Gonzaga when I was there, that were kind of in my dorms at DeSmet, and just to see those guys, Chris and Paul, going, we got invited to this thing. Can you tell me what happened in the event and your picture of it, and how'd you guys pull that off?
Well, first and foremost, it was a daunting task to make that transition to go to the Final Four, and that, I mean, it's not like you haven't been there on the precipice before.
But it's different, right?
Going to the Final Four is a different level. It is,
because you guys have gotten everywhere to the close, but there's a new door that opened.
Yeah. So, we went to the Elite Eight in '99. We didn't get back to the Elite Eight again until 2015. And so there was a period of time where going to the NCAA tournament was really,
you got that down.
You got that down, but man, it's rarefied air to get to an Elite Eight. And now since 2015, we've had some good repetitions, but going in 17 to the Final Four, we won that game in San Jose, and it was like instant. You felt just the weight.
Oh man!
Just like administratively, I mean, euphoria on the basketball court, everything else, but
the weight was everywhere though.
It was.
Community felt it.
It was, and it was. But to me, it was. You got to sell tickets. You got a huge allotment of tickets and hotels.
I know.
And travel logistics,
I know.
and a completely different paradigm in terms of expectation around the event. Because the Final Four is a giant event with some basketball games at it.
That's exactly what it is.
It is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
And what the NCAA,
that fan fest and the whole experience and the concert outside it was amazing.
And the championship staff, what Dan and Joanne and that group has done is it is
dialed.
It not only dialed, it gets better every year. And I mean, the NCAA gets raked over the coals in the media and everything else. Those people are rock stars at what they do, and they create experiences for student athletes, coaches, and staff at these institutions that are, I mean, they're maybe some of the coolest things they'll ever do in their lives. And that was what 2017 felt like at the end. But in the process of going through it, it was a lot of 18-hour days. Our basketball staff, obviously they're preparing for games, and yet they had the presence of mind to want to be as inclusive as possible and bring back players, but also former coaches.
Right.
We had a ton of our coaches, former coaches.
Right. Dan Ronson was there. I think Leon was there. Billy was there.
We had, I can't even remember, and basically anybody who had connection with the program, and that at least in the last 30 years or 20 years, was able to be at one of our practices.
Yeah.
And then we had that big event at Marley's that you're referring to, which was a giant hosted event for our alums. And then they had a smaller event that was just with the players and the former players,
right?
Which was super touching.
Yeah.
And there was maybe a Kobe Bryant thing with the players there that took place too.
Right, Kobe.
There was a lot going on.
Yeah. Right. He came in and visited the players.
He did.
Right.
It was. I believe there was I think he had some shoes or some.
Yeah,
Nike
he brought some shoes or something. I mean, he passed away not long after that.
Eric Lautenbach from Nike was always just a unbelievable champion of the program.
So basically, every former player that had played for the program was invited back, at least when since Mark had been there, which was a long time.
Well, and part of that's just logistics of who do we know and how do we, invite, and just try to be as inclusive as possible. And at the same time, I'm sure we made errors. I mean, we were shooting from the hip on starting on a Saturday, trying to get to the next Friday with.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. My experience as a fan who went, it was awesome. I mean, it was smooth and easy, and got my ticket package, and the seats were great, and I don't know. I mean, it was just so bizarre.
It was an amazing experience.
It was amazing. I just remember looking at my son and I remember looking at him going, "There's 2 minutes left, and we're up by 2, dude, in the national championship game."
Yeah.
This is doable, despite the whistles and all that stuff. I mean, dude, calling it so tight. I don't know.
I might have to edit out some comments.
I know. I mean, we could feel it in the room. I was just like, "Come on, you're gonna call it this tight? Really? It's really gonna do that? Okay."
It's a tough job being an official.
It's a tough job being an official. That's all you can say. I know. But it was, I mean, we got to do a commercial, I think about a month later with Nigel.
Yeah.
And he had done a really cool thing for Windermere Foundation. And so we filmed this. We spent a whole day with him. And I mean, that guy, I remember the first game I saw him play. And I've been watching these games forever, you know, and same seats forever, you know, and he comes in. That first game he played, I went, "Oh, this is different. This guy's different. These guys are different. I hadn't seen this before." I mean, you could tell there was something about him, and boy, he and Suggs have a lot. There's a lot. I mean, you know what I mean? There's something about them and who they are as Peasel. Great point guards, bigger guys, amazing athletes. You could probably play any sport. They were. It's the leadership of those 2 guys, even as young as Suggs was when he played, he didn't feel like it.
Well, I think Nigel came from a position of experience where Jalen didn't have the same experiences.
It was Jalen it was just built in the DNA.
He definitely had it, right?
Oh,
But Nigel. You want to talk about it? I mean, it's not very often that your recruiting decision or your decision comes down to, do I want to go to Harvard or Gonzaga? You know,
right.
Those kinds of decisions.
Right.
Not your typical high level
person,
blue chip basketball player kind of decision. But man, that's the kind of person and student that he was. First team academic All-American.
Unbelievable.
Just unbelievable talent in the classroom as well as on the court.
Yeah, wicked.
Smart. But that, to your point, and a tremendous leader, a person, a character to have in your locker room, to be setting a tone. I mean, you just look at that group, and that was an incredibly gifted group on and off the court.
Incredible. And that, and the injury at the end of that game, I'm like, well, who knows what could have happened, because he was a winner. That guy had the clutch gene. It's like the first game he plays, you're like, well, I know the Final Four, if he ever gets there, who's taking the final shot? It's going to be him, and everybody knew it, and he would have made it. Yeah. If you get those up, you just kind of know those kids. I don't know. There's something about that guy. And I felt the same way a little bit about Kevin Pangos when he played. Yeah. First time he stepped on the court, I'm like, that kid looks like a junior. And he was just older. He was just, I don't know, man.
Kevin is maybe one of the more mature human beings you'll ever meet. He was granted, I say that in the context of a basketball player and actually a person off the court too. He was one of those guys that for me had a presence about him that exactly. I just admired it.
Yeah.
And I always did. And it was to know that he was setting the tone in the locker room and the character of him as a person. I think that's a lot of the success that the program's had are because of people like Kevin.
First, Craziness in the Kennel.
Yeah.
Kevin's first game. He's a freshman. He's in there. My daughter Emma and I are sitting at this game, and she's going to be mad at me if she ever heard me say this, but
she's going to hear you say it.
She's going to hear me say it. Yeah. We're watching, and I'm like, okay, who's your favorite? Just watching, a little bit of that, and she's like, number 4. Like, didn't bat an eye.
Not a question.
And it wasn't just because he was the most handsome kid on the court, but I think she knew, like, this guy is different, and there have been those guys, right? Yeah. And I know you can't pick your favorites, but any of those guys that you're just like, man, I'm so blown away by that.
There is. I don't really, to your point, I don't have favorites, but there are players that stick out in my mind. Kevin's one of them. J.P. Batista is one of them.
Who's still fortunately with the program. That's pretty
awesome
cool.
To have. I think we might sub him in tonight because he's ready to play.
He could play, dude. He looks amazing.
Unbelievable.
I'm like, that guy looks like he could play right now. He could. He could give you 10 minutes.
Yeah, easy. maybe 35. Guys like that are the ones that really. And it's not. They were great players. but it's those subtle interactions that you have with them off the floor.
Right. Right.
Just quiet, strong leaders, respectful, people that cared about their teammates. Those are the people that stick out in my mind. We've had so many just. I mean, it's too long. The list is too long. I'd feel bad if I started listing them.
They all kind of are a piece to the puzzle.
Yep.
In some way, the fabric of the thing. You can't separate and pull one thread out, and the whole thing doesn't kind of work.
Yeah.
You get to see and meet a lot of people. Just being around that. I mean, I found a little bit of a view of it just from following you guys and filming and stuff. And it's like the exposures are crazy, and the feeling of you'll have NBA teams that will watch your guys' stuff, like see you see the Gonzaga team walk through the airport and go, oh my gosh, or not that you do anymore. It's all charter, but like they're rock stars out there. Anybody that you've been surprised by or met that you've gotten to see, like, oh my gosh, I just got to meet whatever.
I am like the least starstruck person ever, and
you're
usually
you're the worst.
I am awful.
There's
I don't know how many times it's like, I don't know who people are, And it's like, we had Adam Sandler down at practice earlier this year, and my wife's like, hey, did you go down and see him? I'm like, no. It's like, he doesn't want to meet me.
He doesn't.
I mean, it's like, I got nothing to offer here.
He on the kennel floor is what he wants to do.
So, no, I think that most of the time it's, for me, when they are, I think one of the cooler things one time is I got to meet Jerry West. That was a cool moment.
Well, that's good. That's huge.
Yeah, it was.
What an experience. I do remember Gonzaga playing, I don't know if you ever got to meet him, but John Wooden, and him actually, coming over and taking pictures with you. Were you there for any of that? Or did
I wasn't.
See any
no,
of that?
I wasn't.
Just talking to Mark and saying that he thought he was a great coach. I mean, that was a moment now.
Oh, well, Mark has it memorialized in his office. I mean,
as he should.
I don't think Naismith had too many signed notes to anybody, but we also had Jerry Krause around the program.
Oh, Jerry, man.
JVK.
I got to work with him on a couple projects.
Yeah.
He did some videos and stuff, and man, I love that guy. What a legend.
Yeah, Dr. Krause had basketball chops that ran really, really deep and connection at every level in the sport. So I think I've been so blessed to be able to observe and watch people that are, they care deeply about the game. They don't just let the game be they're not just the beneficiary of the game, but they make sure that the game benefits from them as well. And I think Jerry really epitomized that in so many ways. He gave much of his life to the betterment of basketball. And when you have people around you like that, it creates a different aura of, what it's all about. Standard of expectation and just respecting the game, and I was a failed basketball player myself. I loved the sport, but I was never talented enough to play. And so it was to be able to have had the observational participation that I've had over the course of my professional career. I feel really, really grateful for just being able to just have this little, kind of
view of it.
This little tiny little little string hanging off the back of the sweater, and I get to hold on to it there and watch a little bit.
You've done more than you realize too.
Well, at the same time, I think that there's, the reality is we've been blessed with people that are truly pillars of the game to be around Gonzaga basketball now for 30 years.
And even the Judd Heathcote.
Yeah.
Don Monson going to all the games, season ticket holders sitting there like the two old guys in the balcony at the Muppet Show, those two.
There was nothing more entertaining than 2 minutes with Judd. Because
what was he like?
Oh gosh,
you probably can't say again.
I could never repeat most of his jokes. I can tell you that. Incredibly humorous. Very, very dry sense of humor, but just another guy that's just like the love of the game and the commitment to the game, and just
it seemed like they needed those two guys, right? They would meet with him pretty regularly and just get that kind of mentor coach, the kind of stick in the side, the whatever. That's
a better question for the coaches. Sure. I know they had regular interaction, and I know they and I I can imagine and would expect that they loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
I think there's, sometimes I'm sure there was some critiquing as well. I think they just had a great, good-natured mentor relationship.
Yeah.
And we've been blessed with a lot of, consistency in our coaching staff. So our coaches that have been here, we got to know really well. We have had long tenures, and they've gone on and done other things. And we talked about Tommy. We've talked about, Billy a little bit.
Yeah.
Certainly Leon, but even Leon. Dan was there for, it felt to me like formatively a long, long time.
He was there a long time.
It was like 10 years.
He was there
right?
10 years.
10, 12 years.
Yeah.
I can't even remember the first time I met him. Although I think he probably made me go,
clean up something in the
clean
corner.
Up something or something. I remember more than one time. It was in my grad guy days that I think that it was maybe a free barbecue at his house that I ended up moving a lot of stuff.
Well, and he lived with like Billy and Mark.
He did, yeah.
That's nuts. Those three guys, dude. And that was the thing about those guys. When Billy was doing the highlight reel, when he was the first one to do it, he would come over a lot. Like we would, be working on this thing at night, and I started to realize, oh, he wants some dinner. Like these guys were making, as I recall, $5,000 a year.
There was
something like that.
There was
much.
The program's come a long ways in its compensation. I will agree with that.
Well, I mean, these are grad assistants now. That's still a relatively low. I mean, it's a relatively low paid position. It just always has been, right?
There's no question that, first of all, nobody gets into the coaching profession because they want to make a bunch of money.
No,
they're doing it because
and none
they
of these
love
guys
to
were
teach.
doing it for that. Absolutely not.
And then at the same time, there's a lot of sacrifice, because of that. And there's those years were really, really lean in many ways. And the university didn't have the means to support basketball in the way that it does now. And,
right.
and I think that those two things just speak to, for me, it makes you even that much more aware of just how much there's a commitment and love to teach and to help students or players become great athletes, but also to make sure that they maintain their status as students and prosper and graduate. Because that's the other amazing thing about Mark's tenure is all of these students are graduating, right? That it's his academic.
That's sort of job one.
Not everywhere.
Not everywhere.
Not everywhere.
No, not everywhere.
But it's been consistently the case here.
Yep.
And there's guys that interrupt that process to go, make millions of dollars.
Right.
Yeah. And in many cases, they come back and get their degree.
Anyway.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So I think as much as anything, the impact that Mark's had on people has been not just making sure they're the best basketball player that they can be, but he's made sure a lot of them have degrees when they leave Gonzaga.
Yeah. That first Final Four, just when that ball tips off and you're standing there courtside, what was that like for you? Just could you believe it?
Yeah, I think so. I think
we're fine.
First of all, the cool part about the Final Four is it's like you're on a spaceship. Right, it's an alien environment. You're in this massive building. The court's
massive.
The court's elevated. I'm sitting at the scorer's table, which means you're below the court.
I know, which is weird.
Completely different environment. And I think when that ball goes up and you realize that we're one of those four teams, you actually believe you're going to win it.
Yeah. Well, why not? I mean, you won the game before, and honestly.
Been doing it all year. Let's just keep going.
If they don't call that game tied, I think you win by 15. That's me. Just maybe I'm wrong, but just being in that place and watching that was amazing. Jalen Suggs, the shot heard around the world. Probably one of the top 3 or 4 ever moments at March Madness. What was that experience like for you? Because I got a question about it. Because I saw it too. I was there in the building. And only about 8,000 people in there, by the way, right? It was a
giant.
Lots of people say
stadium.
they were there now, but it was
weird.
COVID.
Yeah,
it was weird.
Weird time.
It was weird.
I spent 30 days in the same hotel room.
Oh wow!
It was the most unexpected thing ever. First of all, because you're just waiting for it to clank off so you can go to overtime.
Right.
And the way we were sat in that, usually I'm sitting courtside at a table or something. In this case, we're 20 feet away,
separated,
20 feet away from the court with nothing between us and the court except a table that no one was sitting at, which was happens to be the one that Jalen came and jumped on.
Okay, so you were right down at I was right above you. So when he jumped on that table and he pointed right at us. I mean, that's where we were, in line with that. Unbelievable.
I was like a 12-year-old running around in a circle. I didn't know what to do with myself.
Nobody knew what to do.
I was just like,
it was pandemonium.
And Mike Roth's over in the tunnel, which he always stands in a tunnel, which is like now he's way away from the court, and he's literally off the ground and expressing emotion in a way that you never see him. He was,
no, you don't.
He just lost his mind. And I'm sure I looked as out of control.
Oh,
too.
Everybody
did.
So,
such an unbelievable moment.
It was incredible. Yeah, my son had the presence of mind to actually film it right away. Just the craziness around it, and we've watched it since, and it was just like, that was nuts. My recollection, I've said this before, but when that ball went in, did you have this experience? There was a moment, a beat in time where everything stopped. It was like, did that just go in? Like there was a beat of, what the hell? And then crazy pandemonium, but it felt like the world stopped for like a beat.
My recollection is a little different in the sense that I just remember, because I was essentially confined in a little pen with little pipe and drape around us. And as soon as the ball went through the net, I needed to take action. I needed to go do. And so I think I'm tripping over the pipe and drape, and I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to run somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's like literally there's a scorer's table, so I'm running around it, and it was
surreal.
It was surreal because it did feel like that. Probably 10 seconds was like, I don't know, 90 seconds.
Exactly.
It felt like
time was different.
It was different.
It was different. Okay. Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah. And the next hour was different. Like walking outside, people are just going, did that just happen? I mean, the whole walk out, we had to walk around for half an hour. Finally went, sat down and got, the 47 steakhouses, thank God that were there. And, next to 20 UCLA guys who were just looking at us like, I want to kill you. But super complimentary actually of they all love Mark, they all love but I feel like that was, as a fan, it was hard to come back from. I don't know how that team could get that high, and I think it had to affect the next game. I don't know. I felt like it did.
I don't think you can.
I mean, Baylor's.
I think it's irrefutable that had a major impact on.
It had to.
On just not because of any decision that was just made, just the sheer amount of adrenaline and how the body processes it, and the mind and
as a
locking
player,
in,
especially. And staff. I mean,
the same thing happened last year. I mean, that Julian's shot at the end of that game was maybe more crazy in many ways.
That was unbelievable.
And with the full knowledge of now, and the coaches were great at intentionality and getting the team to turn around and get focused for that next game.
That had to have helped that.
You can't rewire the neurons, though, man. When you got all that dopamine flooding in there.
But that's a tough coaching job after a high like that.
Super. And it goes back to something you said earlier in this. We see these as supermen, as adults, as
characters.
In many ways, people want
video game characters.
Everybody thinks of them as professionals, and it's like, no, they're just like our kids.
Exactly.
They worry about they get excited about the little things and worry about the little things just like everybody else is 18-year-old.
Yeah.
They're no different. They're not.
It's just got to be. I mean, you can't. Yeah, it had to affect it. I mean, it just whatever.
It goes back to the context of how do you feel at the end, and it's like, wow.
Wow.
You know what?
Sure.
It didn't end the way we wanted, but wow.
Boy, yeah. And hey, tip your cap to Baylor. They played they were
out
of their mind. They didn't miss a shot.
Unbelievably,
they were
tough, physical,
tough,
executed.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different variables that go into that stuff too. But you're absolutely right. You get to tip your cap and say, "Good job, guys."
No question about it. Yeah,
but,
they were.
That's where it's like, you know what? Maybe we should play best out of 3 and just see what happens.
That's right.
But
yeah,
you never know.
And I always felt like that game, if they had called it the way
just change
the way that it would have been a 2-point game.
Yeah, it could have been totally different outcome.
It would have been a completely different outcome.
Yeah. I mean, officiating variance is real, right? How a game is officiated is does have an impact, but the consistency is the thing that really matters. I think coaches will tell you that. And we really do get good officials generally. We have a lot of really good officials, and it's just sometimes, it's adjusting in game, and again,
it's part of it.
It's the ability to adjust and make adjustments on the fly, and all those things. It just speaks to the complexity of what the coaches are dealing with, what the players are dealing with, and a lot of times it does change outcomes, but the variables are different than what Joe Fan tends to process sometimes.
I played golf at Gonzaga, and it was a club sport. It is not anymore.
No, it is not.
How many programs do you have?
We have 18.
And we are sitting here on a day when your women's team is ranked and your men's team isn't. Like,
they're really good.
Yeah, they are really good. Those Tronk sisters are so freaking cool. I mean, I don't know. There's just something about that program and what Lisa has done on top of not easy to follow that guy's footsteps. Kelly Grace. I mean.
Yeah, well, she's outperforming right now. I'll tell you, she's done an amazing job of building a great roster, great coaching staff. We have a really good coaching staff all the way across.
I want to have Craig on here and go, how the hell are you working with your wife? That's pretty amazing.
Really well, apparently.
Yeah, no kidding. Those two have figured that. What a cool story that is.
And I'll tell you, if you haven't watched them, Yvonne Ejim is maybe
amazing.
Not maybe, she is the most spectacular post player in terms of total skill set that I've ever watched in person.
Wow.
I know there's lots of great women's basketball players out there.
You've had a lot of them through the years,
she's very much, in terms of uniqueness, she's like Courtney Vandersloot unique. She has amazing hands, a motor that won't quit, strong as all get out, really talented, really special player, she's awesome. And with a tremendous cadre of the Tronk sisters.
This is a real team now.
There's some really nice pieces. And they did some damage. We had Stanford. Stanford came to town and we just throttled them.
Yeah.
And Cameron Brink was in the game when they were. I think she played the first quarter and when they were down 8 or 10 at the end of the quarter. So it's not. I can't remember the specifics, but that was a day we were winning that game. So there's a lot to be said for that program, for Lisa. But to your point, there's 18 different programs. Our baseball program, Mark Mactoff's done a tremendous job, and he's built a lot of really, really nice teams over the years, and brought the program to a different place, back to where we haven't seen that's kind of success since the late 70s,
right?
And obviously there's women's soccer this year going to the NCAA tournament, winning a game. We've got runners. I'm a running program right now. Pat Tyson is such a special coach. He's able to do amazing things with students in the running space. Cross country, track, doesn't matter. We're setting records every weekend now in track. It feels like,
wow.
Having the podium here in town has really changed.
Oh, it's probably helped a ton.
It brings unbelievable.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it brings
I never thought about that.
Great indoor track to Spokane. I went there and I was blown away with how much fun it was to watch. I mean, I'm not a huge track fan. I mean, I used to go to track when my kids ran in track, and it was like, I'm here for 3 hours. Not down there. It's a blast.
Stuff going on.
Really, really cool to see indoor track at the at that level. And then like you said, our golf teams. Brad Rickles done a great job. Had a lot of really, really, really good successful years. And tennis, we have one of the best tennis facilities on the West Coast. The Stevens Center is
that soccer field too is really a great place to watch a game.
It is a great
on the water?
Great field.
Super cool.
Unbelievable field.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing. That's the part that is a huge part of your job. Yeah. People think, basketball. It is obviously the big gorilla, but you got your hands full.
Well,
as a staff.
As a staff, I was just going to say I'd be remiss in not acknowledging. I work with a lot of really, really talented people. I'd say that they're the true magic in the place as the people. And there's a lot of great administrators, a lot of great coaches that, and a lot of staff that support our student athletes, because our student athletes are amazing in every way. They are great in our community, they're great in the classroom, and they're great in competition. And those things, that takes intentionality, it takes focus, it takes effort, it takes resource too. And for me, that's that's what's kept me at Gonzaga all these years, is the mission focused, the commitment to creating great experiences and great outcomes.
The Mark at 700 wins.
Unbelievable.
What was that like? He probably just is like, whatever. But I don't know.
No,
I think this was special. I think he's got to.
I think
some very rare company.
I also think Mark realizes how difficult every one of those has been. That's the thing that
you know what that is? That's a lot of national anthems, dude, to sit through. Every time I see that, I'm like, how many times has that guy you all have had to suffer through those?
It's a lot of celebration in the old tape machine is what it was back in the day.
That's right.
Harv Clark, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
To me, that's an unbelievable number, but just based off percentage, to be his age, to have the repetitions that he's had, and to have that many favorable outcomes in those, I think that there's, Saturday was a great example, right? We're on paper, we're going to win that game by 100. And guess what? They show up and they play hard.
Oh, they play hard. They score 28 against St. Mary's, and then here they come.
Yeah, and
so they're going to.
And we get that every night. Those 700
people
wins.
Don't think about that.
Yeah, those 700 wins have come, in most cases, against the opponents in the best effort. They're not messing around. They want that Gonzaga win will make their season, and that's what they come with. That's what we're going to see tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, are.
They're gonna throw the world at this game.
They are. Yeah, yep. Yeah. They're gonna. Yeah, and they just did. They almost beat St. Mary's at home. I mean, why would they not? You know. Yeah.
They've got.
This conference is better than people give it usually. Always, but
yeah. Well, you know what it is. Life on the road is hard. And
if you don't kill in the preseason, everybody thinks you suck.
And it's all you have to do is watch any major college basketball this year, and you'll see huge upsets. Year. And it's just because life on the road is hard.
Yeah.
And so
and NIL's changed it.
Well,
and I guess the question I would have to you is, the landscape has changed, and we don't have time to talk about how complex it is or how many things you have to deal with, but I do look at it and go, are we just boiling this down so that the haves will continue to have more? And can Gonzaga compete with that? And I know you've got a program that you probably can talk about, that lets everybody here in the community, Gonzaga Collective, I think it's called.
Zags Collective. Yeah.
Zags Collective. So what is that? I kind of wish it was a little more clear personally. Like, what is this? How do I help? What do you want me to do? That would be good to know. But beyond that, just can you sustain when you're competing against big markets and big schools, and the ability to honestly pay athletes?
Well, I think the answer to the last question is if those things were the difference between being able to succeed or not, we would never be where
you'd never be here anyway.
Or never be. Of course, we can compete.
Of course, you can.
Spokane has proven over and over to be a place where you can have a viable basketball team that can build itself to be,
the best.
Yeah,
right
in the last 20 years,
a blue blood, really. In the last 20 years,
you're talking about a rarefied air, and NIL it's actually the convergence of two different things going on right now, right? You have a lot of change in the cultural expectation of the NCAA and its ability to govern. So and really we've switched from a mindset, from a legal mindset. So there was a ruling in the Supreme Court a couple years ago that finally identified that the NCAA's might be an antitrust violation because of the way that they're limiting commerce. Well, no one's ever thought of college athletics in the context of commerce. It's always been education.
Right.
We are institutions of higher learning. We are here to educate our students. The basketball court is one of those classrooms. Our coaches are teachers, and we change people's lives through this experience. Well, we've also done a really good job of making those gyms bigger, salaries bigger, buildings big,
revenue,
you name it,
television
revenue. And
revenue.
This isn't really a basketball issue. It's a football issue, but
it is a
football.
It is a football
is massively.
It's the king.
It's 90% of all the revenues we're talking about are football, but at Gonzaga, it's about basketball too. And so we need to be able to recognize that the world's changing, and we not necessarily in the space of leading the charge and wanting it to change. I think we are absolutely committed to the authentic educational experience of our students. We want them to become graduates of the university. We want them to be the beneficiaries of all the things that those student athletes that came before them are, which are really formative: community service, the opportunity to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Mark's always done an amazing job of that. So when we talk about NIL, that's really where we focus. So the Zags Collective has a lot of different things that it can do. It can actually go business to student, where it's like, hey, I have a pizza parlor and I want to promote it. I want to use one of these guys. Maybe you can help connect. They can do that. And that's just a straight up commercial relationship. And that's called entrepreneurship, and it's in the right way, right? That's what we want for our student athletes. Absolutely. So that's what we want for our students. We want we have an entrepreneurial program in our School of Business for this exact thing. So this is just an extension of that same kind of learning. The other part to it is it's the collective as an entity allows you and I can't give to it because I work at the university, but it allows people to give to the collective, and then the collective can take that money and do good in the community. They can go and pay a student athlete to go do different things that are formative, additive to the community, working with nonprofits. That's right. That sort of thing.
I think we're about to do a project for Second Harvest.
Yeah.
They're involved in some really cool work that is sort of trying to rescue food, that otherwise would end up in a landfill. Let's put it that. And one of the Zag players, I don't want to say who it is yet because we don't know, but one of the men players is going to be a part of that. And it's a benefit to him, right? It's a benefit for his experience. It's a benefit to the university. It's certainly a benefit to Second Harvest because, this is not something they have to pay for.
Right.
But it at the end of the day, it's a win kind of for everybody. That's the kind of stuff you're talking about.
That to me is the best
and exposure for him, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think that really
builds his brand.
It also recognizes the value of time, right? We talked about this earlier, is that these student athletes have an immense amount of pressure on them to perform in lots of different ways in the classroom, in practice. They've got all these expectations around them, and this gives them an outlet to go do good in our community and not have to be over here working on their social media or doing something that's trying to generate some other
clicks and
kind of entrepreneurial kind of piece over here. They don't have to be selling raffle tickets to whatever.
But those, these kids got followings now.
They do. Oh,
the world I'm in is, really a digital space where it is about followers at some levels.
They have influence.
So they can do a lot of good there. They have influence.
They have influence.
And it certainly helps a nonprofit when they get exposure about them through that network. And that's a cool. I think it's cool. I actually love that.
Well, it's to me, it's mission aligned. It's who are we supposed to be teaching? Right. Do they have a responsibility when they have that kind of following? When they've been given the gifts that they've been given the platform. How do they use the platform? Right. And does it change the nature of it when they're being rewarded for that financially? I don't think so. I think that it's just
Anton ain't any different than the kids. If he's making some money, God bless him.
Yeah.
He should, and he's certainly, he's earned it, and he's stayed here. That's the other thing I think is cool about this is you've got guys that would have been long gone. That are, Drew Timme maybe has gone a year before, easy, but hey, wait a minute now, I can stay here. It's keeping guys in school in some ways.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Anton's still here. If the COVID year and all that stuff, maybe he is, but he's gonna benefit and it keeps him around. I think it's great.
I think that has a lot of positive attributes. Now it can be. I think that in its worst, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't support. And I don't think what we're talking about are any of those things. I mean, the reality is there
are schools that are not doing it this way.
There are a lot.
It's still the Wild West, right?
There are a lot of schools that aren't doing it with intention to do it the right way, and I think
they're just flat out buying players.
It feels like that. I don't want to say that necessarily, but it sure feels that way.
Does.
Yeah, and I will say this is that the organization that governs college athletics, the NCAA, is working really hard to try and build some framework around this, but man, we need help. We need some sort of relief from every time the NCAA turns around and tries to create any kind of barometer that really pushes this back into the educational space. There's a lineup of lawyers that are just like sue because they're trying to follow the antitrust thing. So there needs to be some sort of protection on the antitrust, some sort of exemption. Just allow the NCAA to govern.
I mean, it's like anything. Yeah. The Wild West was wild until it got contained. You know? And this, I think you're just in that space right now. There will be some parameters that get around this that allow teams to have this more playing field that's more followable.
Right. And I think what we need to do is get to the point where we're creating an authentic experience for students that's in their best interest, that there can be mutual beneficiaries in the sense that the university can promote itself through its athletic achievement. Fans can enjoy the experience. Student athletes can get some money for what they're doing off the field because of the opportunity that builds their brand. That becomes really equitable, and at the same time maintains a focus on what we're supposed to be there for. Education. Yeah. That's what this is supposed to be about.
Yeah,
and
still
that's
should be.
What we're committed to making it about.
So when you and I were kids, would you ever imagine that Gonzaga would be in the same league as Washington State and Oregon State? Because it's about to happen. Next year, the Cougars and Beavers will be in the West Coast Conference.
Yep.
What the hell? How did this happen, Chris?
The world of college athletics is changing quickly.
ESPN.
You know what? Part of it is we have. I don't know. I have a lot of sentimentality. I hate what happened to the Pac-12.
I do too.
Just hate it in the sense that I love the rivalries and I love the identity, the history. And I feel really, really bad for Oregon State and Washington State in that they just got caught up in the economic realities, and that's one of the things that I worry about as we talk about, as coming off the, segueing out of NIL. It's like if we maintain the core premise of this as education institution to education institution versus entertainment entity to entertainment entity.
That's exactly what's.
I mean, I'm a big proponent of trying to find ways to pull that back in. And not so much, the idea of, because what's going on right now is there's just fracturing. Capitalism and the education system don't work really well together. I don't,
right.
the idea of Title IX and capitalism might be polar opposites. So I don't know. We need to start to rectify that in a way that allows us to have purpose and identity moving forward. And I think alignment around that will change. I do think that you have, in the current time period, some reshuffling that's going on, and whenever there's change, there's opportunity. Yeah, right. And I think with Washington State and Oregon State, they're being really cautious and smart not to make a permanent change.
Pretty smart.
They've been really smart.
They got the keys to some cars here now. I love what they've done. It's so awesome.
They're being very considered. So there's a lot of change ahead, and they're keeping their powder dry for that. So we'll see where they end up, and at the same time, I
think it's cool to play the Cougs every year. Next year, that'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see. As long as we win 2 games, I agree with you. Got
to go down to Pullman.
Yeah, it's at least it's a short road trip, right?
Who knows
we'll see how the league scheduling
plays
out.
That'll be. I mean, that's kind of cool, though. I don't know. I mean, a lot of cases you'd play these guys anyway. I just have always felt like at some point you guys made a good move to stop playing Eastern and Washington State every year because somebody get hurt. Those games were backyard. I'm your little brother, and I'm going to kick your ass. I mean, there were players who got hurt in those games. They got really rough. I don't know that had anything to do with it, but I just remember going, I'm so glad we don't have to play those guys because it's tough.
Well, I think the main thing is just the way that the scheduling works out. We have got opportunities to play in really big time games.
Of course.
And so when you have those opportunities, something needs to fall away, right?
Right, yeah.
And Mark has done a really, really good job of maintaining some nice non-conference balance.
Yes.
That allows our teams to get better, our players to grow
Yeah.
through that process, not just get the snot beat out of them.
Right.
So we can go play Kentucky.
Yeah.
And yet we have games built around that in the non-conference, like last year, where you have some space to you can get yourself focus on yourself, get better, go play that big game where you're totally focused on your opponent, come back, play another one.
Right.
And when you insert really highly competitive regional teams into that mix, sometimes that cadence gets thrown off, and it's maybe not in the best interest of your program, but maybe it's not in the best interest of your student athletes either.
That's true. Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, transition to that, you are always. I mean, if I'm going to hear about Chris Stanford in the news, it's is Gonzaga going to the Big 12? Or you would have been 2 years ago. Are you going to the Pac-12? There is no Pac-12. Thank God that didn't happen. But this kind of West Coast Conference. Do you go to a different one? Again, it's a football game anyway. That has to be I can't imagine all the enumerations it would take to figure that out. It's got to be just impossible.
Well, it's actually a relatively simple calculus. You just try to position yourself in a position that affords the institution the best opportunity moving forward. The impossible part of it is that the environment's changing constantly.
Yeah.
So
right.
When I look at it, we're really grateful for the West Coast Conference, the platform it's provided.
They've done a really nice job the last few years, man.
Really, it's really good basketball for the most part, and it's afforded us great access to
Stu Jackson.
Stu Jackson.
I mean, he's a big time dude.
Stu's a wonderful dude.
He's a pro.
He is, well, literally, yes.
Literally.
He's done a lot in his career.
He's coached on
a lot of levels and done a lot of things, and he understands college basketball intimately. He spent his latest run was with the Big East, and he understands what big time college basketball is about. So he's been a great leader, a great addition. But at the same time, everything's changing, and we have to just make sure that we're positioned in a way that if it makes sense to others, that we could be additive to them, and it makes sense for us that we would be additive in their space. You
have to look at it.
You have to, and you have to make yourself available to it. And I think one of the pieces that I focus on more than anything is you just have to be looking forward, because you have to know what happened. That imagery of the small rearview mirror and the big windshield. Yeah. It's real in this moment, because I don't think the past is going to be predictive of the future.
Yeah. Well, and your job is also to your season ticket holders. It's to a lot of different people. And hey, as a season ticket holder, I'd love to see Kansas in the kennel. And the amount of home games you get are not as marquee. They're just not. They wouldn't be if you were in that conference. They would be, but that's only one piece of the big puzzle.
Yeah, I think the other piece that's going on simultaneously
and the travel's.
Travel's. I think
manageable.
One of those things. It's real. It's real, but it has
but all your sports too. Jeez.
Yeah, but there's a lot of sports that we travel in with our own decision on where we're going to go play, because the conference is just championship only.
Yeah.
So you've got that component.
But I just think Big East and Gonzaga. Like, whoa.
There's a lot of geography there.
There's a lot of geography
There's a lot, yeah.
I remember Chip Kelly when all this stuff went down, the Pac-12 blew up, and he's like, why don't we just, wasn't it kind of working?
Yeah.
I mean, really, aren't you just, what if all the South guys in the Southwest play, and all the guys in the Northwest play, and isn't that kind of where it's going to end up back anyway?
It's kind of funny. Maybe. All those football coaches keep saying, hey, you know what, we need to, I'll take a pay cut. And none of them have taken a pay cut yet. No, right. I haven't seen anybody go. It's funny, they're pretty shortly thereafter, it's, hey, their new contract negotiation, and it's this. Yeah, those darn ADs, they haven't figured out a way to give the money to the players yet. No. So I think that one of the things that when you look at where is college athletics going, what's going to happen in the near future, there's going to be more change. It's going to continue to evolve, and that's I think in the long term we'll find out. But the other thing that's going on here. College presidents have really hard jobs. Oh. Nationally, I'm not just talking from a Gonzaga perspective, although we have a great president who does an amazing job. But higher ed is in a really difficult time right now.
Higher ed is a cliff coming.
It's already here.
It's here.
It's here, and it's the enrollment pool has certainly shortened up, and it's really expensive.
It is.
And so those two things that's two things pushing really hard at the same time. And yet we keep talking about more, that we need to do more as an industry for these students as student athletes. And yet the institutions are saying you need to be more and more fiscally prudent and independent.
Yeah.
Those two things are in direct conflict with each other. And that's another reason why you see these decisions being made, is because college presidents, if you're in one of those Pac-12 presidents and you're staring at this TV deal, you need that other TV deal, that other conference affords, because you don't want to start to have an impact on your general student in a way, in a direct fiscal way. So presidents are an underappreciated. That's an underappreciated stress point in this conversation. Is just that higher ed's not a super solvent industry right now either.
Yeah, right.
Gonzaga is doing great, and we're really, really fortunate. But at the same time,
you're on a bit of an island.
It's a competitive time.
And all that work of and sustainability and consistency that Mark has brought and all of you guys have. I mean, you've been there that long. Mike was there that long. Mark's been there that long. That allows you, and the success has put you guys in an island that you've earned.
Yeah, I think that there's
a bit of insular there. Nothing's perfect.
I would say what it does is it's insular in the sense that you've got a little bit of a lead, but I think the competitive nature of the space is every bit. And we've got unbelievable colleagues across campus that do amazing jobs at enrollment management, and our faculty is spectacular.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of pieces that go into it that create these outcomes, but it's kind of like our basketball team. Don't take it for granted, because if you're not working your tail off right now, if we're not working as a team,
it can go.
Every year is a different year, and that goes, really, as that's kind of my pitch to our fans as well. Stick with us, because we really need you, and we need your emotional support. We need your support in the community. We need you to support NIL, but we need you to support us to be able to deliver the education that we do for our students as well. So it's a multifactorial kind of weird time.
Yeah.
But there's no pot of gold out there for anybody. There is no rainbow that's saying, there's the fix.
Well, and the transfer portal. Oh my God. I mean, we could talk for 3 hours about that, but that is chaos, and it's just, I don't know. I guess it's here to stay too. That's a bizarre, or is it?
It's really why the NIL issue became so divisive so quickly, is because it's the intersection of the transfer portal, unrestricted transfers, and the economic incentive component that may be included, although the NCAA is pretty explicit that it's not supposed to be. Those two things are what really need to be rectified.
Well, yeah, and the old, red shirt that was, I mean, just bypassing it. I'm just going to leave and go somewhere else. But those, I mean, just talk to Kelly Olynyk about how big that, and you could say Braden Huff right now too. Yep. I mean, those guys, that year off, sharpening your axe against the best players in the country, playing against Drew Timme every day, had to help Braden Huff. Of course it will.
Well, and when you look at our women's team, we talked about how good they were earlier. Look at how old they are. Look at how long they've been playing together.
That's right.
And that's a really
old is an important piece to this.
It is super important, and it's a mature group of people that know how to play together.
And this team right now, I mean,
high skill development.
You've had the injury piece right to the men's team. Yep. I mean, Steele goes down. Yeah. It's a totally different ball game right now.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how many games that is, but maybe 2 wins anyway. And now you're looking at 3 losses instead of 5, and 5 is nothing. Yep. I don't know. People just it's razor thin, and Graham Mike's, the guy's not completely back yet. I don't think. I mean, maybe he is now. He's starting to get there, but you can't play that guy 40 minutes a game.
Yeah, there's just Mark's dealing with so thin of margins. The roster depth, and that which it speaks to some of the guys that transferred last year, because they could see the writing on the wall, and everybody wants to play 40 minutes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
one of them's playing tonight.
Yeah, and so you kind of need to figure out And here's my pitch with the transfer portal, and there's some really good arguments to be made about, hey, coaches can transfer at will. Yeah, with financial penalty usually, but that's a whole. So to me, it's kind of a apples and oranges deal. But the reality is, every time a student transfers, especially after the first one, the likelihood of them graduating just starts to plummet.
Yeah, and nobody's talking about that.
And our job is to graduate students. That's our job. And so to me, there's more that we need to be more thoughtful of, not just what wins the press conference in terms of student athlete support, because give them, it's like, if that rationale, and I'm not trying to make the parallel, but I think of it a lot of times when my children were younger and I'm parenting, making them happy and giving them what they want doesn't necessarily equate to what's best for them.
Right.
And I think that there needs to be protections that allow student athletes to be able to leave a situation that is not in their best interest.
Right. They got to have an escape route.
But that's not necessarily the way the system's functioning right now.
Right.
There's not a lot of accountability or mutual commitment that we need to get back to a place where we have some of that.
The idea of, hey, stick through something. Stay in there and fight, just to leave because you can leave at every turn isn't long-term good for a person. I don't know.
No,
there's something about the grit of fighting through it.
I think there's a Gen Z or millennial joke in this, and I'm just not sure.
We're not going to tell.
I'm not sure I should go there.
Dad.
I'm just like, I'm a guy that's been at the same institution for over 30 years now. I don't fit in this conversation very well.
I know we're going to get there. You got a game to get to pretty soon here, but IMG.
Yeah, Learfield
IMG. Such an interesting, to me as a media marketing guy, advertising guy, to see, to watch that rocket ship take off for the first 15 years or so. You guys were holding on for dear life, and then at some point the decision gets made. Hey, this big entity can probably help. How did that decision get made, and what does it give you, that sort of partnership? Because it's not unique across the country, but I think it is unique a bit.
Well, I think that we fit into a pretty typical model nationally. The difference is our product our property is unique. We're also super fortunate in that our general manager here is a Zag. He's a guy that was a grad guy with us in '99, and he's a rock star in his own way. And Mark Livingston just cares about Gonzaga. He's a great Learfield employee as well, but he really has taken this property to a different space.
It's unique.
And yet his job is to essentially, take the multimedia rights of the department and monetize them in a way that is mutually beneficial to other partners. So that's where we get our corporate partnership from. Certainly he assists us with our tertiary rights with Root and KHQ and some things, but really it's the Few show plus the radio show, plus
all things that help keep Mark here.
Right, and every bit of that revenue goes directly back into the operation of our department. So anytime that we can get more support through those commercial entities, it takes less pressure off the institution to support us or our donors to support us. Certainly, you're a season ticket holder. It's like there's it's not cheap to be a Zag season ticket holder, but yet at the same time, there's a lot of people.
There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. and the pressures on us, are the economic pressures on us to continue to support our student athletes are, not anywhere near mirroring what we charge our season ticket holders. No. It's just the trajectory is crazy.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be really different. Social media has changed everything too. How have you guys kept up? It seems pretty good. That's a big commitment. I'm sure they play a part of that.
A little bit. Mostly it's our in-house staff. It's
they do a great job.
Yeah, Devon Thomas and his staff do a really nice job with a lot of different aspects of it. We really rely heavily on our students.
Yeah.
So a lot of the product that you see in our social media is the product of our students that are doing internships.
Well, they're the best in the world at it.
Yeah.
They're wired for it. I have my whole crew here, for the most part under 30, because they really understand it. It's like breathing.
Yep.
For you and I, it's not.
Well, and it's also invaluable to them when they leave the university and go into the job market because they've got
skill set. Oh my
gosh. And just great experiences.
Yeah, that's super cool. Do you walk around like Mike Roth, or do you? He's still walking around.
Yeah, he is still walking around.
I saw him at the.
I do.
I'm
not
sit?
as I am. I tend to sit. I try not to get stuck in the same space.
Somebody's gonna come nail you.
Well, more about just my own. I don't have the same level of
jitteriness.
Well, he's a creature of habit also. Like, so it was the same place all the time.
So I'm not gonna mess with the mojo guy.
I try to be a little different. I'll roam around a little bit. I do have a seat down at the end of the visitors bench that
I see you
that no one will
right below me.
That everybody's afraid to sit in because
the reason you have that seat is because you have quick access to the tunnel to get the hell out of there. If you
every time out. Maybe a place to go pace. But generally I try to get around, especially before the game. I try to see as many people as I can. Yeah. We have 3 different social spaces.
Right.
So
that's busy right there.
In a few hours here, I'll be doing some laps and trying to touch as many people as I can.
That's part of your job.
Yeah.
Near and dear to everybody's heart, John Stockton. Yeah. Is he? You guys talk at all? How's that? I mean, he was here last year, signed this basketball. We did a really cool thing for G Prep. I just saw him at their Hall of Fame. We did a bunch of work for the Hall of Fame at Prep, and he's been, just a hero of mine forever, and his family and I. His dad, Jack, and my mom went to first grade together. Welcome to Spokane, right? So
I worked for Jack, so I know what
you know. What I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, there's some great Jack stories. But it's just not the same without him there. I hope I did see him at his kids' game.
Yeah, he did come to a game this year. Just he sat in the visitors section. John and I have conversations with some regularity. He was gracious enough to come to the alumni event the other night.
Oh, right on.
He is an unbelievable
person,
and just he's such a strong and thoughtful person. He has some very strong beliefs.
He doesn't do anything he doesn't believe in.
He has 100% conviction.
Absolutely.
And there's some things that the university's policies and his belief system hasn't had perfect alignment, and I hope very much that they can find some
time's a good healer, right?
Yeah,
a good elixir.
I hope so.
I would hope.
But I also, I do everything that I can to stay engaged with John. Let him know that he's welcome, and hopefully we'll get back to a point where he can feel comfortable sitting in those seats again.
He's still having his Sunday games, I hope.
I've never been invited. How
would
I know?
No, I mean, you or I would never get invited. We can't play that kind of ball.
No, I've never had that skill level.
I love that he has these games, Yeah. I mean, Anton was in there in high school, invited to those games.
It's a privileged space. I know that.
It's a privileged space. Yeah. You never know who's going to show up in those bad space. No. I do know somebody said one of the guys who played in that, and it was a current NBA player. That's the other thing. 10 Zags in the NBA right now?
I can't
Something
even
like
keep track.
that?
Yeah,
unbelievable.
I'll take that number.
Sabonis
is killing it.
Dude.
Unbelievable.
I mean, anyway. But, those guys will show up at that game in the warehouse playing sometimes. And John, somebody said this last year, one of those players, if he had, right now you can put him in an NBA game, he could probably give you 10 minutes. At 60 years old,
he might be the most fit guy.
The most fit guy, and he's still going to play defense. He's still going to put an elbow in somebody, and he's still going to make a good decision on. Tommy, I remember telling me one time he helped him scout for the Zags, just helping him scout stuff, and he would be like, "Hey, just run the same thing over time." But John just so aware of where everybody is. Tommy said he was a savant. He's like, he knows where this guy is at all times. He almost can't do the same thing over and over because it's just, that is such a gift of his ability to distribute. His highlight reels on YouTube are unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, his career is unbelievable. His ability to perform at the level that he did for the number of years and the durability and the just his career is truly one of the greatest careers in
He's still
in the NBA
what?
history.
Still the all-time assists and steals leader in the NBA.
Probably will be for
ever.
Yeah.
Although Anton Watson now, two prep kids, two bull pups, 1 and 2 in steals.
Yeah, let's.
How do you get a guy that's a power forward, second in steals?
The gift of hands.
Boy, that guy. I think he's. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that guy, but I mean, you think he might have a chance next level.
He's
playing well.
I just enjoy it. That's
just enjoy it. That's the theme of the night. Well, thanks, man.
You bet.
Thanks for being on this.
Thank you.
Cheers. I appreciate
the opportunity.
Stopped in and go Zags.
Go Zags.
MIP Podcast was filmed at the studio of Corner Booth Media. Please sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere podcasts can be found.
We'd love it if you'd rate, review, and subscribe to help our podcast grow. Be good to yourself and stay interesting.
Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I'm Frank Swoboda. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them. This week, the most interesting person you've never heard of is